Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Guardian, watching the massive shapes appear on his long-range sensors. He had been patrolling this sector of space for 3 years and had never seen anything like what was coming toward them. The sensor readings showed over 200 ships moving in perfect formation directly toward the human space boundary markers. Lieutenant Lisa Carter turned from her station with worry written across her face. She had been monitoring the alien fleet for the past hour, and the numbers kept growing as more ships dropped out of hyperspace to join the formation. These were not merchant vessels or exploration ships. These were warships built for one purpose, and that purpose was conquest. Chief Engineer Danny Rodriguez checked his instruments again, hoping he had made a mistake. The energy signatures coming from the alien fleet were unlike anything in the human database. These ships were bigger than anything humanity had ever built, and their weapon systems showed power levels that made him nervous. He called up the engineering reports on his screen and started calculating how long the Guardian could survive if those ships decided to attack. Communications Officer Karen West activated the standard first contact protocols that all human ships were required to follow when meeting unknown alien species. She sent out greeting messages in 17 different languages, including basic mathematical sequences and peace symbols. The response she received made her blood run cold. The alien fleet was not interested in peace or communication. They were broadcasting demands for immediate surrender. Jake Morrison had served in the human Navy for 15 years and had fought in the border wars against pirates and raiders. He knew the difference between a patrol fleet and an invasion force. What he was looking at was definitely an invasion force, and it was heading straight for human space. The alien ships were arranged in attack formations with their weapon systems already powered up and ready for battle. The Guardian was a small patrol vessel with a crew of only 30 people. It carried basic weapons for dealing with smugglers and pirates, but nothing that could threaten the massive warships approaching them. Jake knew that his ship would be destroyed in seconds if the aliens decided to attack, but he also knew his duty. The Guardian was the early warning system for human space, and he had to make sure Earth knew what was coming. Lisa Carter reported that the alien fleet had crossed the outer boundary markers that clearly marked the beginning of human territory. The markers broadcast warnings in every known language, telling any approaching ships that they were entering sovereign human space and must request permission before proceeding. The alien fleet had ignored these warnings completely and was continuing deeper into human space. Danny Rodriguez monitored the alien communications channels and translated what he could understand. The aliens called themselves the Zephyrian Empire, and they seemed to believe that humans were a primitive species that would surrender without a fight. They were talking about dividing up human colonies among their fleet commanders and discussing which planets had the most valuable resources to strip mine. Karen West tried one last time to establish peaceful contact with the alien fleet. She sent messages explaining that they were violating human territory and asking them to stop and negotiate. The response came back immediately, and it was not what she hoped for. The alien commander told her that humans were now subjects of the Zephyrian Empire and that resistance would result in the complete destruction of all human worlds. Jake Morrison made the decision that would determine the fate of both species. He ordered Karen to activate the Deep Space Communication Array and send an emergency message to Earth Defense Command. The message was simple but urgent. A large alien invasion fleet had entered human space and was showing hostile intent. The Guardian would continue to monitor the enemy fleet and report their movements, but the ship was vastly outgunned and could not stop them. The response from Earth came within minutes. Admiral Patricia Hayes herself acknowledged the message and ordered the Guardian to fall back to a safe distance while continuing to track the enemy fleet. She told Jake that reinforcements were already being mobilized, but it would take time for them to reach the outer rim. The Guardian was to avoid engagement at all costs and focus on gathering intelligence about the alien ships and their capabilities. Lisa Carter watched as the alien fleet continued deeper into human space, ignoring every attempt at communication. The Zephyrians seemed completely confident that they would face no real resistance from humanity. They had obviously studied human military capabilities and decided that humans posed no threat to their empire. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Danny Rodriguez began recording detailed sensor readings of each alien ship, including their weapon systems, defensive capabilities, and propulsion methods. This information would be vital for the human fleet that was already racing toward them from the inner systems. He knew that the Guardian might not survive what was coming, but at least the data they gathered would help humanity fight back. Karen West continued broadcasting warnings to the alien fleet, even though she knew they would be ignored. Military. Protocol required her to give the invaders every chance to withdraw peacefully, even when it was obvious they had no intention of doing so. Each ignored warning would be documented as evidence that humanity had tried to avoid war. The alien fleet moved past the Guardian without acknowledging its presence. To the Zephyrians, the small human ship was not even worth destroying. They were focused on reaching the inner systems where the real prizes waited. They had no idea that the little patrol ship they ignored had just sealed their fate. Admiral Patricia Hayes stood in the command center of Earth Defense Command watching the tactical display show the alien fleet moving deeper into human space. She had been preparing for this moment for over a decade, ever since intelligence reports first warned that aggressive alien empires were expanding toward human territory. The Mousetrap Protocol had been designed specifically for this situation, and now it was time to put it into action. Captain Steve Palmer received his orders aboard the heavy cruiser UES Vigilant and immediately began implementing the deception that would lure the enemy fleet into the killing zone. His ship, along with 6 other vessels, would appear to be the main human defense force fleeing in panic from the superior alien numbers. The performance had to be convincing enough to make the Zephyrians believe they were chasing a beaten enemy. The Vigilant powered up its engines and began broadcasting fake distress signals while appearing to retreat toward the inner system. Steve Palmer made sure his communications were left open so the aliens could intercept messages about civilian evacuations and desperate calls for reinforcements. The Zephyrians had to believe that humanity was completely unprepared for their invasion and was scrambling to organize any kind of defense. Lieutenant Colonel Amy Foster coordinated the activation of hidden weapons platforms throughout the outer solar system from her command post on Ceres. These platforms had been disguised as mining stations and cargo depots for years, while waiting for an invasion that many hoped would never come. Each platform was equipped with enough firepower to destroy a battleship, and they were positioned to create overlapping fields of fire throughout the asteroid belt. The alien fleet took the bait exactly as human strategists had predicted. Fleet Commander Veltar saw the retreating human ships and ordered his forces to pursue them at maximum speed. He wanted to destroy the human fleet before it could reach Earth and organize a proper defense. The Zephyrians had studied human military doctrine and believed they understood how humans would respond to invasion. Steve Palmer watched his sensors as the alien fleet followed his retreating ships deeper into the solar system. The enemy was maintaining perfect formation and seemed completely confident in their superiority. The Zephyrian ships were impressive with thick armor and powerful weapons, but they were following predictable attack patterns that human tacticians had studied and planned to counter. Amy Foster began moving her hidden weapons platforms into their final positions, while the alien fleet was still hours away from the kill zone. The platforms used minimal power signatures and moved slowly to avoid detection by enemy sensors. Each platform was controlled by automated systems that would activate when the battle began, so no human crews would be exposed to the initial alien bombardment. The Zephyrian fleet continued following the retreating human ships without suspecting they were being led into a carefully prepared trap. Fleet Commander Veltar was pleased with how easily the humans had been intimidated by his superior force. He had conquered dozens of worlds for the Empire, and humans appeared to be no different from any other weak species that tried to resist. Zephyrian expansion. Admiral Hayes monitored the progress of both fleets from Earth and made final adjustments to the battle plan. Human reinforcements were already moving into position from hidden bases throughout the outer system, but they would remain concealed until the trap was sprung. The timing had to be perfect, because humanity would only get one chance to destroy the invasion fleet before it could retreat and warn the Empire. Steve Palmer led his ships through a series of predetermined waypoints that would bring the alien fleet into the exact center of the killing zone. His crew performed their roles perfectly, broadcasting panicked messages and appearing to make desperate attempts to shake off their pursuers. The Zephyrians followed every course change and increased their speed to catch the fleeing humans before they could escape. The hidden weapons platforms reached their final positions just as the alien fleet entered the asteroid belt. Amy Foster watched her tactical display as over 50 platforms powered up their weapon systems and prepared to reveal themselves. Each platform had been programmed with specific targets and firing sequences to maximize the damage inflicted in the opening seconds of the battle. Fleet Commander Veltar ordered his ships to close the distance with the retreating human fleet and finish them off quickly. He wanted to capture some human ships intact to study their technology before continuing to Earth. The Zephyrians had plans for humanity that required keeping some humans alive as slaves and workers. The Empire had found that conquered species were more useful when they believed they had some hope of survival. The trap was nearly complete as the alien fleet moved into the center of the kill zone while pursuing what they believed were the last, desperate defenders of human space. Steve Palmer checked his chronometer and prepared to give the signal that would begin the battle. Everything depended on the next few minutes and whether humanity could spring their trap before the aliens realized what was happening. Amy Foster ran final checks on her weapons platforms and confirmed that all systems were ready for combat. The platforms had been built using the most advanced technology humanity could produce, and each one represented years of preparation and planning. Human engineers had studied every known alien ship design and built weapons specifically designed to penetrate their armor and overwhelm their defenses. The alien fleet spread out into attack formation as they closed on the human ships, apparently preparing to deliver the final blow that would end human resistance. Fleet Commander Veltar was already composing his victory message to the Empire, describing how easily humans had been defeated. He had no idea that he was about to face the deadliest military force humanity had ever assembled. Admiral Hayes gave the final authorization to spring the trap, and Steve Palmer received the signal he had been waiting for. The performance was over, and it was time for humanity to show the Zephyrians what real warfare looked like. The retreating human ships suddenly stopped running and turned to face their pursuers while hidden weapons platforms all around them powered up and prepared to fire. The battle began with Admiral Hayes giving the order that changed everything. Captain Steve Palmer stopped running and turned the UES Vigilant around to face the alien fleet, while every hidden weapons platform in the asteroid belt revealed itself and opened fire. The Zephyrians found themselves surrounded by enemies they never knew existed as antimatter torpedoes streaked toward their ships from all directions. Fleet Commander Veltar watched in shock as his sensors suddenly detected dozens of weapons platforms that had been invisible moments before. The platforms opened fire with directed energy weapons that cut through Zephyrian shields like they were made of paper. 3 of his heavy cruisers exploded in the first 10 seconds of combat as antimatter warheads detonated against their hulls. Commander Ryan Bell led his squadron of stealth fighters out of the shadow of a large asteroid where they had been hiding for hours. His pilots, including Sarah Williams and Tony Martinez, had trained for this moment their entire careers. They knew exactly where to hit the alien command ships to cause maximum damage and confusion. Their fighters were invisible to Zephyrian sensors until they fired their first shots. The alien fleet tried to reorganize, but human tactics made it impossible. Sarah Williams targeted the communications array of a Zephyrian battleship, while Tony Martinez destroyed its main weapons control center. Without coordination, the alien ships began firing at random targets, often hitting their own vessels, as human fighters darted between them, too fast to track. Steve Palmer brought the Vigilant alongside a massive alien dreadnought and fired full broadsides into its unprotected flank. The human ship was smaller, but its weapons had been specifically designed to penetrate alien armor. Plasma cannons melted through the enemy hull, while kinetic rounds shattered internal bulkheads. The dreadnought listed to one side as atmosphere vented from dozens of holes. Dr. Helen Brooks activated her experimental gravity weapon from the research station on Luna. The weapon created localized gravity wells that trapped clusters of enemy ships and made them sitting targets for the human fleet. Zephyrian ships found themselves pulled off course and unable to maneuver as artificial gravity fields stronger than a black hole held them in place. Fleet Commander Veltar realized his fleet had been deceived and led into a trap, but he still believed superior numbers would win the day. He ordered his ships to break through the human lines and continue toward Earth, where they could force humanity to surrender. The Zephyrians had over 100 ships still operational, while the humans seemed to have less than 50 vessels. Ryan Bell proved him wrong by leading his fighter squadron in a precision strike against the alien flagship. The stealth fighters appeared on Veltar's bridge view screen without warning and fired their entire payload of armor-piercing missiles into the ship's command section. The bridge erupted in flames as life support systems failed and the flagship began to drift helplessly. The human weapons platforms continued their devastating bombardment using tactics the Zephyrians had never encountered. Instead of trading shots with enemy vessels, the platforms coordinated their fire to overwhelm the defenses of individual ships. Multiple antimatter torpedoes would strike the same target within seconds, completely destroying it before moving on to the next victim. Steve Palmer demonstrated human pack tactics by coordinating his attack with two other cruisers. The three ships attacked a Zephyrian battle group from different angles, forcing the aliens to divide their fire. While the enemy ships tried to target all three human vessels, they left themselves vulnerable to attack from the weapons platforms. The entire alien formation was destroyed in less than 5 minutes. Dr. Brooks adjusted her gravity weapon to create a massive field that pulled 20 alien ships together into a tight cluster. The ships collided with each other as they were dragged through space by forces they could not resist. Human torpedo boats that had been waiting in the asteroid field emerged and fired full salvos into the helpless mass of twisted metal that had once been proud Zephyrian warships. Sarah Williams and Tony Martinez regrouped with their squadron and began hunting enemy fighters that were trying to screen the retreat of damaged capital ships. The human pilots had superior training and better equipment, which showed as they destroyed twice their number in Zephyrian fighters. Enemy pilots who had never faced humans in combat were completely outclassed by opponents who treated warfare as both art and science. Fleet Commander Veltar attempted to contact Admiral Hayes and request terms for withdrawal, but the human response was swift and final. Earth Defense Command sent back a simple message that had been prepared years before for exactly this situation. No alien force that entered human space uninvited would be allowed to leave and carry word of human capabilities back to their empire. The systematic destruction of the Zephyrian fleet continued as more human ships arrived from the outer colonies. Captain Andrew Clark brought a battle group from Alpha Centauri, while Commander Nicole Adams led reinforcements from Proxima. The aliens found themselves outnumbered and outgunned as the trap closed completely around them. Ryan Bell led his fighters in another attack run against the remaining Zephyrian command ships. His squadron had perfected the art of disabling enemy vessels without destroying them completely. This allowed human boarding parties to capture intact ships and use their own weapons against the rest of the fleet. The psychological effect on alien crews was devastating as they watched their own ships turn against them. The battle entered its final phase as Dr. Brooks prepared to use her gravity weapon at maximum power. She had been saving the most powerful setting for the climax of the battle when it would have the greatest effect. The weapon created a gravity well so strong that it began pulling in asteroid debris along with the remaining enemy ships. Steve Palmer coordinated the final assault as human ships closed in from all directions. The Zephyrians had lost over half. Their fleet and the survivors were scattered and demoralized. Their weapons were running low on power, and their communications had been disrupted by constant jamming from human electronic warfare specialists. Fleet Commander Veltar realized that his invasion force was doomed, but he was determined to take as many humans with him as possible. He ordered his remaining ships to ram the nearest human vessels in suicide attacks. The Zephyrians had always prided themselves on dying with honor, but they were about to learn that humans had different ideas about honor and warfare. Captain Monica Torres commanded her destroyer squadron with the cold efficiency that had made her famous throughout the human fleet. Her ships moved like wolves hunting prey as they surrounded groups of damaged Zephyrian vessels and tore them apart with coordinated attacks. The aliens had never faced anything like human pack tactics, and their honor-based formations crumbled under the relentless assault. The Zephyrians attempted to use their traditional battle doctrine of single combat between capital ships, but the humans refused to fight by alien rules. Major Chris Johnson led Marine boarding parties that captured enemy vessels by cutting through their hulls and fighting room by room until they reached the bridge. Once a ship was captured, its weapons were turned against the remaining alien fleet. Fleet Commander Veltar watched his proud armada being systematically destroyed by an enemy he had underestimated completely. The humans fought without honor or mercy, using every advantage they could find. They struck from stealth and disappeared before the Zephyrians could respond. They used captured ships against their former owners and turned the aliens' own weapons against them. Monica Torres demonstrated human tactical flexibility by adapting her attack pattern to exploit weaknesses in alien ship design. Her destroyers targeted the connection points between Zephyrian hull sections, causing massive structural failures that split enemy ships in half. The aliens had built their vessels for durability against energy weapons, but had not considered attacks against their structural weak points. Chris Johnson's Marines showed the galaxy what human ground combat looked like as they fought through the corridors of captured alien ships. The Zephyrians were larger and stronger than humans, but Marine training and equipment more than made up the difference. Human battle armor could withstand alien weapons, while Marine rifles cut through enemy armor like tissue paper. The alien fleet tried to break out of the kill zone, but found human ships blocking every escape route. Captain Andrew Clark's battle group had positioned itself to prevent any enemy vessel from reaching the edge of the asteroid belt. His heavy cruisers formed an impenetrable wall that destroyed any alien ship that tried to run from the battle. Fleet Commander Veltar realized his situation was hopeless and attempted to negotiate with Admiral Hayes directly. He offered to withdraw his remaining ships in exchange for safe passage back to Zephyrian space. The human response was immediate and final. There would be no negotiations with invaders and no mercy for those who threatened human space. Commander Nicole Adams led her ships in a flanking maneuver that trapped the last organized group of Zephyrian vessels against an asteroid field. Her crews had trained for years in asteroid warfare and knew how to use the rocky debris as weapons. Human ships pushed asteroids into collision courses with enemy vessels while staying safely hidden behind larger rocks. Chris Johnson's boarding parties had captured enough alien ships to form their own squadron, which they used to attack the remaining Zephyrian fleet from within their own formation. The psychological effect was devastating as alien crews watched their sister ships firing on them with human Marines at the controls. Many Zephyrian vessels surrendered rather than fight their own captured ships. Monica Torres coordinated her destroyer attacks with the human fighter squadrons to create a multi-layered assault that overwhelmed alien defenses. Her ships would disable enemy weapons while fighters attacked their engines and life support systems. The combination of precise targeting and overwhelming firepower left the aliens with no way to defend themselves effectively. The systematic destruction continued as human ships demonstrated tactical innovations that the Zephyrians had never encountered. Dr. Brooks used her gravity weapon to create artificial meteor showers by pulling asteroids into high-speed collision courses with enemy vessels. The aliens could not defend against attacks that came from random directions at relativistic speeds. Andrew Clark's heavy cruisers began the final phase of the battle by forming a battle line that advanced steadily through the remaining alien positions. The human ships fired in coordinated salvos that focused their entire fleet's firepower on individual enemy vessels. No alien ship could survive the concentrated fire of 20 human cruisers attacking simultaneously. Fleet Commander Veltar made one last desperate attempt to reach Earth by ordering his surviving ships to scatter and run in different directions. He hoped that at least some vessels would escape to warn the Empire about human military capabilities. The strategy failed as human ships pursued each fleeing vessel and destroyed them one by one with ruthless efficiency. Nicole Adams demonstrated human pursuit tactics as her ships hunted down fleeing Zephyrian vessels throughout the asteroid belt. Her crews had studied alien engine signatures and could track enemy ships even when they tried to hide behind asteroids. The humans had better sensors and faster ships, which made escape impossible for the invaders. The battle entered its final hour as the last few Zephyrian ships tried to make a coordinated breakout attempt. Monica Torres positioned her destroyers to intercept them while fighter squadrons attacked from above and below. The aliens were caught in a three-dimensional crossfire that destroyed their remaining vessels in minutes. Chris Johnson reported that his Marines had captured the alien flagship and were interrogating surviving crew members. The intelligence they gathered revealed that the Zephyrian Empire had planned this invasion as the first step in a larger campaign against human space. Multiple alien fleets were being prepared to attack human colonies throughout the galaxy. Admiral Hayes received Johnson's report and made a decision that would echo throughout known space. Rather than wait for the next invasion, she would take the war to the enemy. Human fleets would carry the wreckage of the Zephyrian invasion force back to their home world as a message that could not be misunderstood. The last Zephyrian ship exploded, under concentrated fire from human weapons platforms, and the battle was over. Not a single enemy vessel had escaped to carry word back to their empire. Fleet Commander Veltar and his entire invasion force had been completely destroyed without managing to harm a single human civilian or even reach the inner solar system. Monica Torres surveyed the wreckage of what had once been a mighty alien armada and felt satisfaction at a job well done. The humans had not started this war, but they had certainly finished it. The galaxy would learn that attacking human space was the last mistake any species would ever make. Fleet Commander Veltar looked at his tactical display and saw the impossible. His mighty invasion force of over 200 ships had been reduced to less than 30 vessels, and they were completely surrounded by human forces. The species he had dismissed as primitive had not only defeated his fleet, but had done so with tactical brilliance that made his own strategies look like the fumbling of children. Captain Eric Davis positioned the battleship UES Retribution directly in the path of the Zephyrian breakout attempt. His ship was outnumbered 10-1, but he had trained his entire career for moments like this. Executive Officer Linda Murphy coordinated the ship's defenses, while Weapons Officer Gary Peterson prepared to unleash the full power of human military engineering against the desperate aliens. The remaining Zephyrian ships concentrated their fire on the Retribution in a final attempt to punch through the human perimeter and escape to warn their empire. The alien weapons hammered against human shields and armor, but the battleship held its position. Davis had calculated that his ship could absorb the punishment long enough for reinforcements to arrive and close the trap completely. Linda Murphy monitored damage reports as alien fire found weak spots in the ship's defenses. Hull breaches opened on 3 decks, and the main reactor was operating at dangerous levels, but the Retribution continued fighting. Human engineering had built the ship to survive exactly this kind of punishment, and every system had multiple backups and redundancies. Gary Peterson returned fire with everything the battleship could bring to bear. Plasma cannons melted through alien hulls while kinetic weapons shattered enemy ship structures. The Retribution's weapons had been designed specifically to counter Zephyrian technology, and they proved devastatingly effective against ships that had been built to fight other aliens. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Rachel Torres worked frantically in the ship's medical bay as wounded crew members were brought in from damaged sections. The human casualties were surprisingly light considering the intensity of the battle, but every life was precious, and she was determined to save as many as possible. Her medical team had trained for combat operations, and they worked efficiently, despite the chaos around them. The Zephyrian breakout attempt began to falter as more human ships arrived to support the Retribution. The aliens had hoped to overwhelm a single vessel, but found themselves facing an entire battle group that coordinated its fire with deadly precision. Their desperation made them sloppy, and human gunners took advantage of every mistake. Fleet Commander Veltar realized that his fleet was doomed, but he was determined to inflict as much damage as possible before the end. He ordered his remaining ships to ram human vessels in suicide attacks, hoping to take some of his enemies with him. The Zephyrians had always believed that dying in battle was the greatest honor a warrior could achieve. Eric Davis anticipated the ramming attacks and maneuvered the Retribution to avoid the first suicide ship while his gunners destroyed it with point defense weapons. The explosion lit up space as the alien vessel disintegrated, but more ships were following behind it. Human tactical doctrine had prepared for this possibility, and every ship knew how to counter ramming attacks. Lieutenant Colonel Amy Foster's weapons platforms provided covering fire as the human fleet dealt with the suicide attacks. Her automated systems tracked incoming ramming ships and fired antimatter torpedoes that destroyed them before they could reach their targets. The platforms had been programmed to prioritize threats to human vessels over targets of opportunity. Linda. Murphy coordinated the Retribution's point defense systems as more alien ships attempted ramming attacks. The battleship's close-range weapons created a defensive barrier that no enemy vessel could penetrate. Laser arrays and missile systems worked together to destroy incoming threats, while the main guns continued engaging targets at longer range. The battle became a test of will as much as firepower as the Zephyrians threw everything they had left at the human fleet. Gary Peterson noted that alien weapons fire was becoming less accurate as enemy crews succumbed to panic and desperation. Human training and discipline were proving superior to alien fanaticism and rage. Dr. Rachel Torres reported that human casualties remained minimal despite the intensity of the fighting. The superior design of human ships and the effectiveness of damage control teams meant that most crew members survived even when their sections were hit. This gave human ships a significant advantage in prolonged combat. The final Zephyrian formation collapsed as coordinated human fire destroyed ship after ship. Fleet Commander Veltar watched his last escorts explode around him as the human fleet closed in for the kill. His flagship was burning, and most of his crew was dead, but he refused to surrender to what he still considered an inferior species. Eric Davis brought the Retribution alongside the alien flagship and demanded surrender. When Veltar refused, Davis ordered his gunners to disable the enemy ship without destroying it completely. Human intelligence wanted to interrogate surviving alien officers and examine their technology for future reference. Amy Foster's final weapons platform, salvo broke. The back of Zephyrian resistance, as the last few enemy ships were overwhelmed by superior firepower and tactics. The aliens had fought bravely according to their own codes of honor, but they had been completely outclassed by human military doctrine and technology. The alien flagship listed helplessly as its engines failed and life support systems began shutting down. Fleet Commander Veltar finally understood the magnitude of his miscalculation. He had led his fleet against a species that had turned warfare into a precise science and had paid the ultimate price for his arrogance. Linda. Murphy reported that all enemy vessels had been destroyed or disabled and that the human fleet had achieved complete victory. The Zephyrian invasion force had been annihilated so thoroughly that not a single ship would return to warn their empire. The aliens had learned too late that humans were not the weak prey they had expected. Gary Peterson surveyed the wreckage of the once mighty alien armada and felt pride in what his species had accomplished. Humanity had faced its first major test against galactic powers and had not only survived, but had won decisively. The battle would be remembered as the moment when humans proved they belonged among the stars. Dr. Rachel Torres finished treating the last wounded crew member and reflected on the day's events. The medical bay had been prepared for massive casualties, but human ships had proven so superior to alien vessels that losses were minimal. It was a testament to human engineering and tactical doctrine that they had won such a complete victory. Admiral Patricia Hayes stood in the command center looking at the tactical display that showed nothing but human ships and floating debris where the Zephyrian invasion fleet had once been. The battle was over and humanity had achieved complete victory without losing a single vessel. The alien armada that had seemed so threatening just hours before was now nothing more than scrap metal drifting through the asteroid belt. Captain Jake Morrison brought the UES Guardian closer to examine the wreckage of alien ships that his crew had first detected entering human space. The patrol vessel that had seemed so helpless against the massive invasion force was now collecting data from the destroyed enemy fleet. His crew worked efficiently to gather intelligence about Zephyrian technology and military capabilities. Dr. Helen Brooks analyzed the alien communication logs that had been recovered from damaged enemy ships. Her translation programs revealed the true scope of Zephyrian ambitions, and the discovery chilled her to the bone. The invasion of human space had been planned as merely the opening move in a campaign that would have targeted dozens of human colonies throughout the galaxy. Lieutenant Lisa Carter worked with the Guardian's communications team to decode alien star charts and fleet deployment records. The information showed that multiple Zephyrian battle groups were being assembled at bases throughout their empire. Each group was intended to attack a different human settlement, once the main invasion force had secured Earth and the core systems. Admiral Hayes studied the intelligence reports and made a decision that would change the balance of power in the galaxy. Rather than wait for the next Zephyrian attack, she would take the war directly to their homeworld. Humanity would deliver a message that could not be ignored or misunderstood by any alien species considering aggression against human space. Captain Steve Palmer received orders to assemble a task force that would carry the wreckage of the Zephyrian fleet back to their empire as a demonstration of human capabilities. His ship, the UES Vigilant, would lead a convoy of vessels loaded with debris from the destroyed invasion force. The message would be delivered in a way that left no room for misinterpretation. Chief Engineer Danny Rodriguez coordinated the recovery operations as human ships collected pieces of destroyed Zephyrian vessels. The largest sections were loaded onto cargo ships while smaller fragments were organized and cataloged for the journey to alien space. Every piece of wreckage would serve as evidence of what happened to species that attacked humanity. Commander Ryan Bell prepared his fighter squadron for the long journey to Zephyrian space. His pilots had proven their superiority in combat, and now they would escort the convoy that carried proof of human military power. The fighters would ensure that the message reached its destination and that any alien forces encountered along the way understood the consequences of threatening humanity. The task force departed from human space carrying the remains of over 200 Zephyrian warships. Captain Palmer calculated that the journey would take several weeks, but the psychological impact of their arrival would be worth the time and effort. The Zephyrian Empire would learn that attacking human space meant facing retaliation on their own worlds. News of the victory spread throughout human space as colonies and outposts received reports of the battle. Captain Monica Torres established new patrol routes along the expanded human border where warning beacons would broadcast messages in every known galactic language. The beacons would make it clear that human space was sovereign territory that would be defended with overwhelming force. Dr. Brooks continued analyzing alien technology and discovered that the Zephyrians had seriously underestimated human capabilities. Their intelligence reports showed that they believed humans were a primitive species with limited military technology. The aliens had based their invasion plans on completely incorrect assumptions about human strength and organization. Admiral Hayes authorized the construction of additional weapons platforms and the expansion of human defensive networks. The victory over the Zephyrians had proven that human tactics and technology were superior, but she wanted to ensure that future invasions would face even stronger resistance. Humanity would never again be caught unprepared for alien aggression. The convoy carrying Zephyrian wreckage reached the border of alien space and was immediately challenged by patrol vessels. Captain Palmer responded by launching debris containers that scattered pieces of destroyed ships throughout the area. The alien patrol ships retreated immediately when they recognized the wreckage of their own invasion fleet. Word spread through the Zephyrian Empire as reports reached their homeworld, describing the complete destruction of their invasion force. The aliens who had planned to conquer human space were forced to confront the reality that they had attacked a species far more dangerous than they had imagined. Fear replaced arrogance as the Empire realized the magnitude of their mistake. Other alien civilizations throughout the galaxy monitored human communications and learned about the fate of the Zephyrian invasion. Species that had been considering attacks on human colonies quietly abandoned their plans after seeing what happened to the last aliens who had underestimated humanity. The lesson was clear, and it spread quickly through galactic society. Captain, Torres completed the installation of new warning beacons along the human border and activated their broadcasting systems. The beacons transmitted a simple message that left no room for misunderstanding. Human space was protected by forces that would destroy any uninvited visitors and retaliate against their homeworlds if necessary. The final scene showed various alien species monitoring human transmissions and choosing to give human territory a wide berth. Trade delegations that had been planning to test human defenses changed course and requested permission before approaching the border. The galaxy had learned that humanity was not a species to be trifled with, and that respect was the only safe approach to human space. Dr. Brooks published her analysis of the battle for distribution throughout human space and beyond. Her report detailed how the Zephyrian invasion had been defeated through superior tactics, technology, and coordination. The document served as both a historical record and a warning to any other species considering aggression against humanity. Admiral Hayes received confirmation that the message had been delivered successfully when Zephyrian officials contacted Earth requesting negotiations. The aliens who had planned to enslave humanity were now begging for peace talks and offering reparations for their failed invasion. The tables had turned completely, and humanity now held the advantage in any future discussions. The story concluded with the establishment of humanity as a respected and feared power in galactic politics. The species that had once been seen as primitive newcomers were now recognized as apex predators, capable of defending their territory with devastating effectiveness. No alien empire would ever again make the mistake of entering human space uninvited.